The wedding preparations had consumed the palace for 3 months, and advisor Elias Vance had overseen every miserable detail. Flower arrangements from 12 worlds. Guest lists spanning 4 star systems. Security protocols for 300 noble houses who would cheerfully assassinate each other, given half a chance. And at the center of it all, Princess Sailindra of the Velanthi hegemony, who had not smiled once since the engagement was announced. The Archon of House Morvith will arrive tomorrow, Elias reported, standing at regulation distance from her chair. His retinue includes 40 personal guards, 12 concubines, and a ceremonial beast that requires live feeding. Sailindra didn't look up from the window. How many of the guards are assassins? At least 6, Your Highness. We've identified 4. 2 remain uncertain. And the concubines? 3 are intelligence operatives. 1 is a poison specialist. Efficient. Her voice was flat. Empty. He means to ensure my compliance even after the vows are spoken. Elias said nothing. There was nothing to say. The marriage had been arranged by the High Council to secure an alliance against the tyrannic expansion, humanity's growing presence in the Galactic East. House Morvith commanded the largest private fleet in the hegemony. The princess commanded nothing but her bloodline. She was 23 years old and had never left the palace grounds. You may go, she said. Your Highness, the evening protocols require. I said go. She turned, and Elias saw something in her silver eyes that made his chest tighten. Not anger. Something worse. Resignation. I wish to be alone before I am never alone again. Elias bowed and retreated. But he didn't go far. 3 years as the princess's human advisor had taught him to recognize the difference between solitude and crisis. He waited in the corridor, counting seconds, until he heard the sound that confirmed his fears. Shattering glass. And then, silence. He was through the door before protocol could stop him. Sailindra stood by the window, her hand bleeding from where she'd punched through the decorative panel. Shards glittered around her feet like frozen tears. Your Highness, I wanted to feel something. Her voice was distant. Anything. The Velanthi do not. We are not meant to feel. Emotion is weakness. Attachment is danger. We are bred for duty, for alliance, for the perpetuation of power. She looked at her bleeding hand as if it belonged to someone else. I thought pain might be different. Elias moved without thinking. He crossed the room, took her injured hand in his, and began extracting glass shards with the careful precision of someone who had done battlefield triage. You shouldn't touch me, she said. You're bleeding. I am a princess. You are human. The contamination protocols can go to hell. He didn't look up from his work. Forgive my language, Your Highness. For a long moment, she was silent. Then, you are the strangest creature I have ever known, Elias Vance. I've been told. You do not fear me. Should I? I could have you executed for this. For touching royal blood without permission. For speaking to me without being addressed. Her voice cracked. For making me feel as though I mattered to someone. Elias finished wrapping her hand with a strip torn from his own sleeve. Only then did he look up, meeting those silver eyes directly. You do matter, he said. Not because of your bloodline or your title or what you can give the hegemony. You matter because you're a person. A person who's been treated like a chess piece her entire life, and who deserves better. Sailindra stared at him. In 3 years, no one had ever spoken to her like this. No one had dared. What is it like? She asked suddenly. What is what like? Love. The word came out halting, uncertain as if she were speaking a foreign language. They arranged her marriage for power. But before I sign my life away to a man who sees me as a breeding contract, I want to know. What does love feel like? Elias felt his heart crack open. It feels like fear, he said quietly. Fear of losing someone. Fear of not being enough for them. Fear of a future that doesn't include them. That sounds terrible. It is. It's also the only thing that makes life worth living. He released her hand, suddenly aware of how close they were standing. It's waking up and being grateful for another day because they're in it. It's wanting to be better because they make you believe you can be. He stopped. Why are you asking me this? Sailindra's silver eyes were luminous in the fading light. Because in 3 years, you are the only one who has ever made me feel anything at all. The days before the wedding passed like a slow execution. Elias threw himself into his duties with desperate intensity, hoping that work would drown out the impossible thing growing in his chest. It didn't. Every glimpse of Sailindra made it worse. Every protocol meeting where she sat silent and pale. Every fitting for her wedding gown where she stood like a statue being dressed for burial. The Archon arrived with appropriate fanfare, A bloated creature 3 times Elias's age, his scales dulled by excess, his eyes calculating every asset in the palace with proprietary hunger. When he looked at Cylindra, he didn't see a person. He saw territory to be conquered. Lovely, the Archon pronounced, circling her like a buyer examining livestock. The breeding reports were accurate. Strong bone structure. Adequate coloration. She will produce acceptable heirs. Cylindra stood motionless, her face a perfect mask. Elias's hands shook with the effort of not intervening. That night, she summoned him to the garden, the one place in the palace without surveillance, maintained for meditation purposes that no Valenthi ever actually used. She was sitting on a stone bench when he arrived, still wearing the formal gown from the Archon's reception. In the bioluminescent glow of the night flowers, she looked like a ghost. "Sit with me," she said. He sat. "Tell me about human courtship," she said. "How do your people choose mates?" We choose each other, based on compatibility, affection. Sometimes just proximity and luck." He paused. "It's messy, illogical. Half the time it ends in disaster. But you choose." "Yes. And if you choose wrong? If the one you love does not love you in return?" Elias's throat tightened. "Then you live with the pain. You move forward. You hope that eventually it fades." "Does it? Fade?" He thought of the way she looked in morning light. The rare moments when her mask slipped and something real flickered behind her eyes. The sound of her voice saying his name. "No," he admitted. "Not always." Cylindra turned to face him. "Elias, if you could choose anyone in the galaxy, anyone at all, who would you choose?" The question hung between them like a blade. "Don't ask me that." "Why?" "Because the answer would destroy both our lives. My life is already destroyed." Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled. "In 3 days, I will belong to the Archon. He will use me to produce heirs, and then discard me when I'm no longer useful. My existence will be measured in political value and genetic contribution." She reached out and touched his face, a violation of every protocol, every law, every boundary between princess and servant. "Give me something real before I lose the ability to feel anything at all." Elias caught her hand, meaning to push it away. He couldn't. "Cylindra, you called me by my name." A ghost of a smile touched her lips. "You've never done that before. I've wanted to. Every day. I've wanted." He stopped. "It doesn't matter what I want. It matters to me. I'm human. I'm nobody. I clean up the messes your nobles make and file reports that no one reads. In the hierarchy of this palace, I rank somewhere below the furniture. And yet you're the only one who makes me feel like a person." She moved closer, her silver eyes filling his vision. "The only one who has ever made me feel anything at all. This is impossible. Everything worth having is impossible." Her forehead touched his. "Tell me what you want, Elias. Just once. Before I have to spend the rest of my life pretending I don't have wants of my own." Elias closed his eyes, felt her breath warm against his skin, felt every wall he'd built crumbling into dust. "I want you," he whispered. "I've wanted you since the day I arrived. I want to wake up next to you and fall asleep holding you. I want to make you laugh and dry your tears and show you everything beautiful in the universe that you've never been allowed to see. Then show me." He kissed her. It was desperate and tender and terrifying all at once. She kissed him back with a hunger that spoke of years of starvation, her arms wrapping around him as if he were the only solid thing in a dissolving world. When they finally broke apart, both shaking, Cylindra's mask was completely gone. She looked young and scared and impossibly alive. "Run away with me," she breathed. "What?" "I have access to the emergency shuttles. I know the security rotations. We could be 3 systems away before anyone realizes I'm gone. They would hunt us. The Archon, the Council, every bounty hunter in the hegemony. I don't care." Her hands gripped his. "I would rather die free with you than live forever as his property." Elias looked at her, this princess who had never felt love, who had been bred for duty and raised for sacrifice, who was willing to throw away everything for a human servant who had taught her what it meant to feel. "The shuttle bay," he said. "Tomorrow night, during the pre-wedding ceremony, when everyone's attention is on the temple." Cylindra's eyes widened. "You'll come with me. I'll come with you." Kissed her again, softer this time. "I'll follow you anywhere." They almost made it. The ceremony was in full swing when they slipped away, the Archon and his retinue distracted by religious rituals that neither Elias nor Cylindra believed in. The corridors were empty. The shuttle bay was unguarded. Everything was perfect. Until it wasn't. Going somewhere, Your Highness. Lord Mavic stepped out of the shadows, flanked by 6 guards. The Council's enforcer, the one they sent when discretion mattered more than mercy. Sailindra froze. Elias moved in front of her instinctively. Step aside, human, Mavic said. This doesn't concern you. It concerns me if you're trying to stop her. Stop her? Mavic's laugh was cold. I'm trying to save her. The Archon's intelligence operatives discovered your little plan hours ago. If you'd boarded that shuttle, you would have been vaporized before clearing the atmosphere. Elias felt the blood drain from his face. What? The Archon doesn't tolerate defiance. He was going to let you escape, then destroy the shuttle as a demonstration of his reach. Mavic's eyes moved to Sailindra. Your death would have been blamed on human incompetence. Earth would have faced sanctions. The Alliance would have proceeded with a more tractable princess from a cadet branch. Sailindra's hand found Elias's. Then we're trapped. Not necessarily. Mavic stepped closer, his voice dropping. The Council is divided. Half of them see this marriage as a death sentence for the hegemony, tied forever to a tyrant who will bleed us dry. But they're afraid to act. And the other half? Profiting too much to care. Mavic's gaze hardened. I'm not part of the other half. Elias processed this rapidly. You're offering to help us. I'm offering to give the princess a choice, something she's never had. Mavic turned to Sailindra. I can get you out. Not in a shuttle. He's monitoring all of those. But there are older ways. Maintenance tunnels that lead to the planetary transport grid. From there, my people can move you to a neutral system. And in exchange, Sailindra's voice was steady, but Elias felt her hand trembling. Testimony. Evidence. Everything you know about the Archon's operations. His bribery of council members. His plans for the hegemony after the marriage. Enough to bring him down. And the collaborators with him. That would mean civil war. That would mean freedom. Mavic's expression softened slightly. Your mother tried to reform this system from within. She died for it. I'm offering you the chance to finish what she started. Sailindra was silent for a long moment. Elias could see the calculations behind her eyes. Not the cold political ones she'd been taught, but something deeper. Something about the kind of person she wanted to be. The tunnels, she finally said. Take us to the tunnels. Mavic nodded and turned to lead them away. But they'd barely taken 3 steps when alarms began to wail. He knows. Mavic breathed. How does he? The guards at his side turned their weapons on him. One of them smiled. The smile of a man who'd been waiting for this moment. The Archon knows everything, Lord Mavic. He's been monitoring your little resistant self for months. Chaos erupted. Plasma fire scorched the air. Mavic went down with a shot to the leg. Elias grabbed Sailindra and ran, dragging her through a service door into the maintenance corridors beyond. Behind them, pursuit. Ahead, darkness. Do you know where these lead? Elias gasped as they ran. No. I've never been in this part of the palace. Then we pick a direction and pray. They ran until Sailindra's legs gave out, collapsing in a junction that looked identical to every other junction they'd passed. Elias checked for pursuit, found none, for now, and knelt beside her. We're going to die down here, she said. Not with despair. Just acceptance. No, Elias, no. He took her face in his hands. I didn't survive 15 years as the only human in this palace just to die in a maintenance tunnel. And I didn't fall in love with you just to watch you give up. Her eyes widened. You said you wanted me. You never said, I love you. The words came out fierce, desperate. I love your courage and your curiosity, and the way you pretend not to care when you care more than anyone I've ever met. I love that you asked me what love felt like because you never experienced it. And I love that you were brave enough to reach for it when you had every reason to stay safe. Tears were streaming down her silver cheeks, something Valenthai weren't supposed to be capable of. I love you too, she whispered. I don't know when it started. Maybe the first day, when you looked at me like I was a person instead of a symbol. Maybe later, when you wrapped my bleeding hand and told me I mattered. But I love you, Elias. Whatever happens next, I needed you to know that. He kissed her. Salts, and silver, and desperation. And that was when the wall beside them slid open, revealing a hidden passage and a figure in maintenance coveralls. If you two are done being romantic, the figure said, Lord Mavic's backup plan would like to not get captured today. The backup plan was a network of servants, maintenance workers, and minor officials who had been quietly working against the Archon for years. They moved Elias and Sailindra through the tunnels like precious cargo, passing them from hand to hand through a system so decentralized that no single arrest could compromise it. 3 days later, they emerged on a neutral station at the edge of hegemony space, bruised, exhausted, and alive. The fallout was immediate and spectacular. Salindra's testimony, transmitted from the safety of the station, ignited the civil war Mavic had predicted. But it was a different kind of war than anyone expected. Not fleet against fleet, but truth against lies, evidence against denial. A princess who had chosen love over duty, speaking directly to her people about the corruption that had ruled them for generations. The Archon tried to paint her as a traitor, a human puppet, a genetic defective corrupted by alien influence. His propaganda might have worked, except that the people had seen her face when she spoke about what she'd escaped. They had heard the tremor in her voice when she described a childhood without affection, a future without choice, a system that treated living beings like breeding stock. They had seen her hold the hand of her human advisor and say, simply, "He taught me what love feels like, and now I'm going to teach my people what freedom feels like." The Archon's coalition crumbled. His fleet defected. His allies abandoned him. Within 6 months, he was in custody, and the High Council had been dissolved, replaced by a provisional government that looked nothing like anything the hegemony had seen before. And Salindra? Salindra stood on the balcony of the palace where she'd grown up, no longer a prison, but a headquarters for the reconstruction of an entire civilization. Beside her stood Elias, officially titled Royal Consort, but privately just hers. "They want me to be Empress," she said quietly. "I know. I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I should. Everything I know about leadership was taught to me by people who used power for control, not service. Then learned something new." Elias took her hand. "You asked me once what love felt like. Now I'll ask you, what does freedom feel like?" Salindra considered the question. Below them, the city was coming back to life. Markets reopening, families reuniting, a people rediscovering what it meant to have choices. "It feels like standing on the edge of something vast and not knowing what comes next," she said. "It feels terrifying and exhilarating and completely unpredictable. Sounds about right." She turned to face him, her silver eyes bright with something that hadn't existed a year ago. "Hope. They arranged my marriage for power," she said. "But you gave me something better than power. You gave me the chance to become someone worth loving." Elias pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her as if he could shield her from every threat the universe might send. "You were always worth loving," he said. "The universe just hadn't noticed yet." Salindra laughed, a real laugh, warm and unguarded and free. "Help me build something new, Elias. Not an empire. Something better. Something where no princess ever has to ask what love feels like, because she'll know from the very beginning." "That sounds like a lot of work." "It does. And we'll probably make 1,000 mistakes. Probably. And the old powers will fight us every step of the way." "They will." Elias smiled and kissed her forehead. "Then let's get started." They stood together as the sun set over a world transforming itself. Two impossible people who had chosen each other against all odds. And somewhere in the universe, in the quiet spaces between stars, the story of the princess and the human was already becoming legend. Proof that power was nothing compared to connection, that duty was nothing compared to love, and that the most radical act in any galaxy was simply to choose, freely and completely, the person who made you feel alive.